Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I've got your dev server overview for the Sky Guardians update. That's right, with the new Sky Guardians update coming out likely within about the next 2 weeks, there is the dev server, and I will be going over every vehicle that's on the dev server, at least to the best of my ability. If I forget any of them, comment below, I'm sure you will. But that being said, let's start. So that being said, the first one that we have here, this one isn't even named. I don't even believe it was shown on the dev server live stream for the official War Thunder channel. There's no dev blog on it, but it is the T1E1. Now this is, as you can see, pretty much a prototype variant of the M6A1 and shares more or less the same body style. Now, this is not a completed model, which is why it kind of looks like one of those plastic army men that you might get when you were a kid, but this features, at least as of currently, a 75mm cannon with the same stuff that you might see on an M4 Sherman. So it's pretty interesting, being that this is shown as same BR as the M6A1 and even later in the tech tree. I'm actually really surprised by that, being that this has a better armament, at least when it comes to facing tanks. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do with that, but you know, ultimately that's a really cool surprise, being that, you know, I personally love the M6A1. Now that said, next up for the US, we have the AH-6M Little Bird. This is a 10.0 BR helicopter, and it actually sits on its own kind of side of the tech tree. Once you get the UH-1B, you can get this, and that's pretty much it, at least for now, insofar as that specific line of the tech tree is concerned. Now, interestingly, the US doesn't really get a ton in this update, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, but you do get the F4S. Now, this is an 11.3 BR premium F4 Phantom, and it comes with a bunch of AIM-7Fs. So you can have basically 6 AIM-7Fs, at least what it looks like, plus 4 AIM-9Hs. So this will be a very powerful anti-aircraft weapon. I'll have to wait and see if you can actually use these internal or these inside hardpoints to actually carry bombs. So it might not be the most effective anti-ground vehicle out there, but of course, this looks like it will be nasty versus air, especially with the fact that it's got those AIM-7Fs. And let's see here. Oh, you can't even see what type of radar it has, but I'm assuming, being that it's 11.3 VR, it'll probably have the pulse Doppler capability. So that is pretty damn cool. So next up, we have the Blue Water Fleet, and the US actually gets a few additions. So we have the USS Des Moines, which is a heavy cruiser premium pack, and I believe it'll cost $60 USD, but this should be a very good vehicle. It's got good rate of fire and pretty much everything that you might want. Next, beyond that, we have the Nevada, the USS Nevada. This is a battleship that will be coming in the newest update. Pretty similar, if I'm not mistaken, to the USS Arizona, and it is 6.7 BR. Now, we won't be getting anything here in the coastal fleet, but I don't really suppose that matters for too many people, because if you're playing naval, you'll probably be playing blue water. Now, that said, for Germany, we get the Sonderkraftfahrzeuge 222, or the SDKFZ 222, depending on how you want to look at it. This is a new baseline SPAA. However, we'll be able to defeat tanks at this BR, which is pretty cool. It's got 48mm of armor pen at max. The Chinese also get a variant of this, but I think, at least based on the dev server or the dev stream, the engine on the Chinese variant might be slightly less than. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Next, we have the T-72M1, which is pretty much already in game in the Swedish tech tree, more specifically the Finnish sub-tech tree, but this is really interesting because we are getting a Russian vehicle, an East German vehicle, as a German vehicle, which is really nice. It should add a lot of heft to this BR and should add a different sort of play style, which I think a lot of people probably want. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, are these tech trees becoming kind of homogenous? I know they have been for a while, especially with so many American vehicles infiltrating other tech trees. But, you know, of course, with this, you could definitely make even a stronger argument than you did previously. Speaking of other countries infiltrating other tech trees, the MiG-29 is coming to the German air tech tree. So this vehicle basically is going to be the same as the Russian MiG-29. It's got more or less everything that you might see on that. You have R-60 MKs, the R-27Ts, Rs, and ERs, as well as a decent amount of CAS ordnance, although not best in the world. But again, that's reflected in the Russian version as well. Now, Germany does get a new vehicle here. It should be one of, right here, it's the File. This is a motor torpedo boat. This is a rank 4.3 BR torpedo boat. It's not really all too impressive in my opinion, but again, that's just coastal for you. I mean, coastal, in my opinion, has never really been all too impressive. Now, Russia gets a few different ground vehicles here. Mostly, or actually not even mostly, entirely they are going to be SPAA. So first and foremost, we have the M5359. You may have seen this in the teaser trailer for the Sky Guardians update. I'll just kind of show you exactly what this is. If this doesn't ring a bell, I don't know what will, but this is a brand new vehicle. This is from the Czech Republic. Should be very, very powerful with two 30mm cannons on top. Next, we have the Pantsir F1. This will take the reins as the top level SPAA for the Russians. This is pretty much a Tunguska on steroids. It's got these cannons. It's got 12 AAM-95YA6 SPAA. G or whatever it is, anti-air missiles. So this should be a really, really nasty vehicle. Now, Russia doesn't get any sort of helicopters. I guess that's kind of to be expected. Helicopters in any update for any tech tree, they aren't really a guarantee. You know, it's just one of those things. Now, next up, and this one I'm really surprised by, the Yak 141. So if you guys don't know, it's the Yak 41 or 141, depending on who you ask. It really can go by either one. I think it was listed as the Yak 141 to sell it, but internally it was the Yak 41. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but this is a rank 7, or rank 8 rather, 12.0 BR VTOL strike aircraft, and the stats on this thing are ridiculous. So as you can see, it could supposedly go 2,315 kilometers per hour, 255 meter per second rate of climb. I really don't think that that's the case. I don't think that's very accurate. I'm pretty sure in real life it only had an 1,800 kilometer per hour top speed, so I think that has to be readjusted, and likely the rate of climb as well. Now, this has a very interesting tail to it. As you can see, it's kind of like a weird split tail. If you guys have ever seen that that cargo plane, what was it, like the boxcar or whatever it was? Very, very interesting, very, very similar. Now, what this doesn't have is, this doesn't have any R-73s. So the R-73s could be carried by this in real life. Rather, this has R-60Ms, 27Ts, 27Rs, and up to 4 R-27ERs, which is very, very powerful. So I'm very excited by this. This should be a very good aircraft. Now, I'm not really sure if it deserves 12.0 BR, just looking at the stats. But hey, you know, maybe that or 11.7 BR, who knows? Moving on to the Russian coastal fleet with the MKK Project 204. This is just a sub chaser. I mean, it's coastal. We are getting a lot of coastal vehicles in this update. Not really sure why, but it is, I guess, kind of cool. Now, next up for the UK, for Great Britain, we have Churchill NA-75. I just want to show you guys this because this is pretty much a 75mm Sherman-equipped Churchill, if that makes any sense. As you can see, I think it's about the same exact cannon, and it fires the same types of shells, so it has 104mm of armor pen, but it's pretty much that type of cannon and slightly modified turret on top of a very heavily armored Churchill. So it should be pretty damn interesting. I'm excited for this thing because it looks like it'll be a really weird tank, but very cool to see that coming to the tech tree. Now, finally, for the Great Britain ground forces, we have the Challenger 2E. This is, if you guys didn't know, basically an up-engined version of the Challenger, and I'm actually kind of surprised that this is going to be after the Black Knight in the tech tree. Now, this features, and this is another feature, by the way, you can see like all the red and all these different colors. Not entirely sure exactly what those are. What they indicate, if you guys know, let me know in the comments below. But the Challenger 2E has the L27A1. If I'm not mistaken, this is their top, Great Britain's top APF SDS shell. But pretty much this should be more or less kind of like a slightly de-armored up-engine version of the Challenger. Again, kind of surprised it's coming after the Black Knight. I expected it before, maybe between the Challenger 2ES and the Black Knight. But hey, you know what? It's really cool that we have this because it is a new style of play. It is a lighter Challenger and a better engine Challenger. Next, for Great Britain, we have the Tornado F3. This is a new variant of the Tornado. This should be a better variant when it comes to anti-aircraft. So as you can see, it's only got the 127mm Mauser cannon, but it does have 4 AIM-9Ls, and you could also attach the Skyflash Super Temps, which are a better variant, if I'm not mistaken, of the Skyflash that we already have in game. So this should be a very, very powerful vehicle. I'm not exactly sure, and let me know in the comments below if you know the difference between this and the regular Skyflash. It might not reflect yet on the stats here, but I believe that those might have better maneuverability. Again, just let me know in the comments below. Next up, we have more Coastal Fleet vehicles for Great Britain. We have the HMS Whitby, which is a rank 4 3.7 BR frigate. This is a 6090 GE 3.7 BR vehicle. Again, not sure who's going to buy it, but I'm sure some people will. And then you also have the HMCS Terra Nova, which is pretty much a Canadian frigate. So pretty cool to see more Canadian representation in War Thunder. Now, when it comes to Japan, we don't really have all too much going on here, but we do have the Type 16 FPS. This is an 8.7 BR rank 6 light tank. At least it's defined as a light tank. More people are going to be playing this as kind of like a light tank destroyer mix, but it does have the M735 APF SDS. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this has Gen 1 or Gen 2 thermals, but, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and just test this. So it's got Gen 2 or Gen 3 thermals. Very cool. But this is a very, very powerful vehicle. And, I'm kind of surprised that it's at 8.7 BR. I could see this being increased to 9.0 BR. But hey, who knows? It's a fast, powerful vehicle, and I am excited to see this coming to game. Now, for Japan, we are getting a top tier F-16 variant. Now, the F-16AJ was never actually brought to Japan. I guess they declined it so that they can make themselves the F-2. But, of course, this is here. It will have access to AIM-9Ls, the AIM-7Fs, and pretty much everything that most other F-16s have access to, but this will also have access to the AGM-65Bs. So this is almost kind of like a variant combination of the two currently available F-16s, which is pretty cool. So it will have access to a decent amount of ground ordnance and also, of course, to a decent amount of anti-air ordnance plus radar-guided missiles. So very, very cool. So to kind of continue the trend here with the Japanese ground. So for the Japanese, we have the IJN Nanohi, which is a rank 4.3, or rather a rank 2 battle rating 4.3 destroyer. Pretty much your standard destroyer. It is what it is. I don't believe Japan gets any coastal, and I am right. Now going to China, we have the SDKFZ 222, the Sonderkraftzeige 222, whatever you want to call it. Tell me if I'm mispronouncing that in the comments below, but this is pretty much just a Chinese version of the German one that's already in game. Next, we have the ZBD 80 or ZTS 80 or 63 rather. This is pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, a Type 62 turret on top of a BMP or a PT-76 chassis. So pretty cool. It's got APF SDS and a laser rangefinder all the way here at 7.3 BR. So it is going to be pretty interesting and effective. But of course, a glass cannon, if there ever was one, you can pretty much spit, and that thing will have an armor pen. Now, China doesn't get any sort of aircraft, nor do they get any helicopters. So those two vehicles are pretty much what China's going to get for this update. Next, we have for Italy. Italy is getting a new top-level vehicle, the Ariete AMV PT-1. So this is an up-engine variant of the Ariete. I don't believe it's got any sort of better cannon or any better armament. As you can see, these both have the DM53, but this does have a better engine, which is pretty darn cool, and I think that will make it a more effective vehicle. Even though it does weigh about 1 ton more, it should be a more effective vehicle than what we see here on the regular C1 Ariete. So pretty good for Italy. Now for France, we have the 2C. This is going to sit just below the B1 BIS on the tech tree, and is pretty much the 2C BIS, except with a more reliable cannon, if that makes a level of sense. So this has a 75mm cannon rather than a 155mm howitzer, and should be a much more effective vehicle than the 2C BIS. However, it will likely, I could see its BR dropping a little bit. I mean, this thing, regardless of the fact that it has a 12-man crew, it has very little armor. So I could see this going down to 2.3 BR, but who knows? You know, it's a very, very interesting vehicle. But as you can see, there are no other French ground forces that are at least in the dev server as of currently, but the 2C is a very, very interesting one. Now, depending on how you take this, you could say that France is getting a lot of love this update. Not really, I would say the next update or the one after that. But we are seeing the first introduction of the Blue Water Fleet for France. We have the Aigle class. I guess it's supposed to be the French version of Eagle. And this will be a rank 2 battle rating 4.3 destroyer, and should be pretty interesting. Now, I think that there is a new ship that they teased in the trailer, the Crossor or whatever, however it's pronounced, but should be pretty darn cool. But this is at least what's on the dev server as of right now. Then finally, moving into the last two countries, we have Sweden. Sweden doesn't really get all too much here. For this update, they do get the ITPS V90, which is pretty much a chieftain wedged on top of a Leopard 2, a chieftain marksman rather, on top of a Leopard 2 chassis. So it does have the really nice for 8.3 BR chassis armor, which I'm really surprised that they didn't deuce that for this vehicle. But, you know, we do have this should be a very effective 8.3 BR tank. It's got about a 30, once fully upgraded, about a 30-to-1 power to weight ratio. So that should be really, really good. And I could see that one kind of seeing a BR increase, but who knows? Who knows? But as you can see here, Sweden does not get anything, at least on the dev server, for its aircraft. And finally, for Israel, they don't really get much. They do get the Merkava Mark IV LIC. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is pretty much like the Mark IV-B, maybe slightly upgraded. Let me know in the comments below. But I think it's pretty much the same vehicle. If I'm not mistaken, it should have all the same modifications and all that. It's kind of just the same, you know. So it's a good vehicle, I'm sure, but shouldn't really be all too much more than the Mark IV-B, and really more so acts as a tech tree filler rather than anything else. You know, that being said, that is all that we have here for the dev server. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I will be releasing gameplay for some of these, or vehicles rather, as time goes on. So I'm always interested to see your opinions. And again, let me know if I've missed anything in the comments below. I've done it once or twice before where I've missed things. So I'm really, you know, just to help out your fellow community, let them know too. But either way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.